The next few videos will look at how to use the standard programming constructs in R. Now, it's not strictly necessary to learn how to use these programming procedures. As we've seen in the previous videos, most of the R code you write consists of the various functions and commands available in the base system and in any additional packages you install. But doing so enables you to automate tasks and create user-defined functions which greatly increase the power and usefulness of the language. And in addition, there are some statistical and econometric procedures you just can't implement efficiently without using some simple programming constructs. So we'll begin by seeing how to use the basic control flow constructs available in R. Now, these are the same as those found in many other programming languages, and thus they'll be familiar to anyone with some previous coding experience. So if you look at the help system to show the information about the control flow constructs here, as you can see, we've got the standard if-else conditional block, and we've got three loops, for loops, while loops and repeat loops, which can also use statements break and next. Now, these are the sorts of control flow constructs that you find in pretty much every programming language. So I'll look first at how to use the for loop, which I have used on 2 or 3 occasions in some of the previous videos. Now, for loop enables you to run a block of R code a given number of times using, if necessary, some different information or data each time. So let's look at an example how to do this. So the example I'm going to look at here shows how you can simulate a random walk series. And in fact, you can use this procedure to simulate any particular series of data. So the first thing I'm going to do is to create a variable x to which I'm going to assign a vector with just one single value, 0, to begin with. So that creates that variable x, which has simply got one value of 0 at the moment. That's going to be the variable into which I'm going to put the values of my random walk sequence. Now, of course, a random walk is a sequence where each value in the sequence, apart from the starting one, is equal to the previous value plus some random error term. So I need to create a vector containing random errors drawn from a normal distribution, and that is done here. So here I'm creating a variable or an object x, a vector x, which contains 100 values drawn randomly from a standard normal distribution. So you can see how to do this. It's rnorm is the function you need, and then in brackets the number of values. So that will draw 100 values randomly from a standard normal distribution and place them in this vector e. So if we run that, then again if we look here, there's e, 100 values, 100 length, and these are the, as you can see, the values here of the first 3, which are drawn from a standard normal distribution. Now, to simulate the random walk series, I need to create another 99 values in x. The first one, of course, is 0, then I read the other values, and the other values are, of course, such that each of these other values, the second, the third and fourth, are equal to the previous value plus one of the random errors. Now, to do that manually would of course be very tedious. You'd be putting 99 statements down here. But of course, by using a for loop, we can do it very, very quickly. So I'm using the for loop here, and I notice the syntax. So you put the word for, and then in brackets, you put some variable name. Things like I and J and T are fairly conventional. I'm using T here because typically a random walk, of course, is a time series. Then the word in, and then you put a vector indicating the values that you want T to take as it runs through the loop, as it repeats this statement here. So this is saying, this is telling this, that what this is saying is repeat this code here, this that I put here, 99 times. First time use t equals to 1, second time use t equal to 2, and so on, and do that 99 times. So this piece of our code here is going to run 99 times. Each time t will be a different value, starting at 1 and then 2 and so on. Now because this of course is a variable, I can use it in the actual code. So here I'm saying make the value of x t plus 1 equal to the value of x t, the previous one, plus the error term in the t plus 1 error term. Now of course, since t starts off at 1, then the first time this runs it will create the second value in vector x. If t is 1, then t plus 1 of course is 2, so the second value will be given the value of the previous one, t is 1, plus the second value in e. And then of course the next time the loop, when the loop runs again, t will be equal to 2, so this means x, the third value of x, will be equal to the second value plus the third error term. So as you can see, that's going to create a random walk with 100 values very, very quickly. So let me run that loop. Now you simply need to put the cursor on the first line here. You can highlight the whole of it if you wish, but simply putting on the cursor on the first line and then pressing Command Enter or Control Enter on Windows will run the loop. So we now have, if you look in the environment, we see that x now has 100 values rather than 1. The first value of course is 0, but then the other 99 have been created using this code here to create a random walk series. So I can now plot x using the standard plot command. I'm telling it to join up the points with lines. We've seen how to use this additional parameter here before in the videos on graphics. And there we have a nice random walk series. Now of course, if I wanted to create another one, all I need to do is to rerun these this code again. Of course, because these values here in E are drawn randomly, when I run it again you get different values and hence a different random walk. So we can see that if I just highlight this code here, I need to start off x as 0 of course to begin with. So I can now run that code and then we have another random walk series. So by using a simple for loop I'm able to do that very, very quickly and very successfully. Of course, if you wanted an AR1 model instead of a random walk, you simply need to put some parameter of course in front of the xt here. Now you could put a fixed parameter of course, or you could make that a variable and use different values. You could in fact put another for loop around this for loop. You can nest for loops. So you could have a for loop running around this one which chose particular values for this parameter, and hence you then run, you'd get a set of AR1 sequences with the different value here. Okay, so that's how to use a simple for loop running through a vector, looping through the values in a vector. Notice here that I didn't actually need to put the standard C notation that I've used for a vector before. You can simply put 1 to 99. If you wanted, say, to loop through values of t from that were, say, 1, 3, and 6, then simply put that as a vector. The little c, of course, and then in brackets 1, 3, 6. You know, the standard vector notation. And then t would take on those 3 values successively and loop through this code 3 times. Okay, so that's looping through the values in a vector to effectively run a certain block of code. Here I've only got one statement, but of course you can have as many blocks here. I should have pointed out, of course, that the block of code that you're going to loop must be within braces. This again is very standard programming notation or syntax. So you can see the syntax as I've used it here. So that was looping through the values in a vector. Let's show how to loop through a set of objects. You can also use the for loop to loop through a set of objects, in other words, using each object in turn and applying some code to that. So that's shown here. So again, it's the same basic syntax, for, and then in brackets you put again some variable. In this case I'm going to put n, in, and then the vector containing the objects. Now here I'm using the standard C notation for a vector, C and then brackets. And in fact the two objects I'm using are these two vectors, x and e here. Of course the objects could be any objects in R, could be data frames, could be lists, could be matrices. Notice the quotes. This is very important. You must put quotes, single in this case, I think double will probably work as well, around the object names, the variable names here. If you don't, it's not going to work. Now also that means that the value of n, remember when you run the loop, n takes on the first value and then the statements are run, then it takes on the second value, the statements are run. So first of all n will take the value x. Now in this case x will simply be the name of the object, the variable name, not in the object itself, not the actual vector of values. So to make sure that your code here in the code block operates on the actual object x, the actual vector x, you use the get word here, the get function. If you simply print the mean of n, it's not going to work because n simply contains a character, x. You can't get a mean of that. So you have to use get and then n. So what this will do first off is n will first take the value x. You will then get the data, the actual vector that's in x, in the variable x. Find the mean of it. And then if in fact you want to print out the mean on the console, you have to use the print function here as well, inside a loop. Normally we've seen, of course, that if you simply want to print an object on the console, a vector or a matrix, you simply put the name of the variable or the object and that will do it. But inside of a loop that won't work. You must use the print function. So notice how I've nested these three functions here. First of all I get n, get the object that's actually in n, x to begin with, then e. Then I want the mean of that, which I'm going to print out. So again, just be careful with the syntax, the brackets. Again, RStudio will alert you if you don't have the right number of brackets. Okay, so let me run this loop here. And there we are. That is the mean of the values in x, and that's the mean of the values in e. So we've seen here how to use a for loop, first of all to run a particular block of code a number of times by using a vector here, and then how we can also loop through objects and repeat the code that's in the braces. Okay, so that shows you how to use the for loop.